And then I realized very quickly that by making those endorsed referrals and doing it for free every day, I was giving away my most valuable asset for free, as many of us do. And so I started calling the solution providers that I was most commonly making those introductions to and asking them, hey, you know, all those introductions I'm making, I'm still going to make them, but now you're going to pay me for it. And guess what I found? Every single one of those solution providers that I talked to said they would be thrilled to pay me for it and pay me on an ongoing basis as a percentage of revenue. And I realized very quickly that what I was doing every single day was really just giving away my most valuable asset for free, which is my personal and professional network. It's like owning a piece of software, and everybody you meet, you would say, oh, take a fully paid, perpetual, non-exclusive, fully transferable license to my software.
Most founders think their biggest problem is leads. Kevin spends 30 years proving that it's almost never that. Four-time Inc. 500, $30 million bootstrapped from zero. Today, he's breaking down exactly what's holding your growth back and what's the thing to fix it. Kevin, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Mark. My pleasure.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Right, we're going to go straight into it. If leads aren't the problem, what is?
Well, leads, the challenge with leads is that for a business to grow with paid marketing, with leads, what you need to do every single time you want to grow is come up with more capital in order to grow the business. And so you're investing in paid marketing, you've got variability in conversion rates and the cost of the leads. You've got new channels always that you're having to test, which are unpredictable. I think a lot of the trends people see in the cost of Google pay-per-click, local service ads, things like that, the cost of leads continues to increase. The market becomes more and more saturated. And I think very often what companies ignore is that their best source of business is based on their networks, incoming referrals, endorsed referrals. That is really the future of growth of businesses, in my opinion, is that if you can grow the endorsed referrals through your network, through partnerships, that is really the key to unlocking massive business growth without having the upfront capital, intense capital requirements of growing through paid marketing. So,
but is that scalable, Kevin? Because a lot of people in smaller businesses rely on their network and referrals, and it's a great way, as you say, you can have raving fans, you can have followers that bring people to you. But is actually your just your network, is that able to scale a business?
Well, I'll just give you, our business, for example. So I started this in 2019, and I started just by talking to business owners and talking to them about the challenges that they were facing, and they would tell me what their challenges are. And then really organically, how it started is just as a way of not embedding myself within their business and getting in the weeds. I would introduce them to a third-party solution provider that would help them address whatever challenge it was. And then I realized very quickly that by making those endorsed referrals and doing it for free every day, I was giving away my most valuable asset for free, as many of us do. And so I started calling the solution providers that I was most commonly making those introductions to and asking them, hey, you know, all those introductions I'm making, I'm still going to make them, but now you're going to pay me for it. And guess what I found? Every single one of those solution providers that I talked to said they would be thrilled to pay me for it and pay me on an ongoing basis as a percentage of revenue. And that does a couple things. It makes it so that your expense associated with that business as a solution provider is actually trailing the revenue. So you're taking a percentage of the revenue that's already realized to pay for your marketing rather than the upfront intense capital investment that you need to make in order to grow your business through paid marketing. So when you ask me if it's scalable, I believe if you're intentional about building referral relationships with individuals who are in front of your target audience, you can build a whole network of referral agents that are generating as much inbound traffic into your business as you're able to drive through paid marketing.
So the introductions that you make, you're taking a referral fee. Is that right?
That is correct. And our business is living proof that you can build an entire business where 100% of the revenue is based on making introductions and receiving residuals off of those introductions. So in a certain sense, we've built our own affinity marketplace of vetted solution providers that we've identified as being best in class in whatever they do.
Yeah.
However, what I'm talking about is the opposite direction, right? So as one of those solution providers, you can go out and build a network of 100 people like me who've got relationships with my target audience, with my ICP, right? So I'm a solution provider. I identify my ICP. How do I go ahead and get in front of the folks who are already in front of that target ICP so that they can promote and provide endorsed referrals back to my business in exchange for a percentage of the revenue?
And were you able to, when did this realization come? Because you've obviously got a huge back history of working in companies. Were you always building businesses that way, or did you do it other ways previously?
No. So I'm an attorney by education, started my first law firm in 1997. My background is just in building high volume B2C law firms. So signing up 2,000-3,000 clients a month with call centers, digital marketing, online marketing, affiliate marketing, really using a lot of different channels and setting up businesses that were operationally complex and highly regulated, very challenging to run. In 2019, I was on my way out of the second national law firm that I built, signing up 3,000 clients a month, and really decided that I just want to do something else with the next iteration of my life, right? Not doing high volume B2C. And I was really spending my time like this with small business owners, talking to them and saying, what's the biggest challenge you're trying to solve for in your business? What is keeping you up at night? And they would respond to me and they would say, I can't generate enough leads, or I'm having trouble with human resources, or I need a new software to manage fill in the blank, right? Whatever the problem du jour was. And as opposed to actually offering to do the work myself, they would say, oh, this is what my problem is. I would say, I've seen that problem before. I had that same problem in my own business. And they'd say, oh, can I hire you to execute that solution for me? And I would say, no, I'm not really interested in doing that, because I know myself. And if I get into your business, I'm never going to get out of the business. I cannot go in half-assed and just, help you a little bit. I'm going to end up being part of your business, and I don't want to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce you to someone that I know would do a really good job of helping you solve that very specific challenge. And I know that because when I faced the challenge after iterating through 2 or 3 or 4 different solution providers, I finally found this group, and they did a great job for me, and I'm sure they'll do a great job for you too. And I'd make the introduction, and I realized very quickly that what I was doing every single day was really just giving away my most valuable asset for free, which is my personal and professional network. It's like owning a piece of software, and everybody you meet, you would say, oh, take a fully paid, perpetual, non-exclusive, fully transferable license to my software. You would say to me, Mark, you're crazy. You should be charging a licensing fee, a royalty, right?
Yeah.
Well, I started to think about my network as a form of intellectual property, right? When I was extending that to a business so that they could, number one, monetize, generate revenue off of that introduction, and also build enterprise value by getting a multiple on the EBITDA that was created within that business, right? I started thinking about it that way. That empowered me to basically go to these solution providers and say, hey, I'll extend the credibility and the reputation that I've built with these referrals that I'm making to you. And in exchange for that, you're going to give me a royalty, a percentage of the revenue that is generated. So that was 2019 when I kind of had that epiphany, that realization that the biggest challenge that small business owners face as they're trying to scale their business is vendor selection, right?
Yeah.
Well, none of us receive any formal training on how to pick the vendors or the partners that are going to best support the growth of our business. And so what happens to us? We have to go through this painful, time-consuming, morale-busting, iterative process of choosing the right vendor, firing that vendor, going out to market again. So really it satisfied my natural inclination to be a fixer and help business owners solve these problems. And it helped them find the closest path from problem to solution. And it generated a business for me that I was able to build recurring residual revenue streams off of connecting seekers, business owners seeking solutions with those solution providers that could best provide them with those solutions.
Right, I want to just get a definition from you about solution providers, because I think some of my audience would be like, okay, so you have a vendor and they provide you with a service.
Correct.
Just for some of my audience, what would you define is a service provider and a solution provider the same thing?
Yes, it's the same thing. So it's basically a vendor that's providing some type of services, software, some type of business solution to a small business owner. I talk to the small business owner and they say, I am facing the following blank challenge in my business. And then I've got a bench of a couple hundred different solution providers that I can tap into and match make that seeker of the solution with. We call those solution providers. And then we have agreements in place with the solution providers where they pay us a residual. The benefit to the seeker, the business owner with the discrete challenge, is they get the advisory work for free. So essentially what I did is I found a way to subsidize my advisory work for these small businesses by getting paid by the solution provider. And I have a lot of conversations with business owners that I never make any introduction because it's not appropriate. And, I've got to protect my credibility by only making the correct introduction between that business owner and a solution provider. But at the times when an introduction is appropriate, it provides a great solution for that business owner to efficiently solve their problem without having to iterate. And it provides me an opportunity to generate revenue by getting paid by the solution provider.
And that solution provider or service provider, how do you know their quality? How do you know that they are who they say they are and what they can deliver?
Yeah. Well, it's a product of years of working with many, many different solution providers. So most of the solution providers are solution providers that I've used in my own businesses and gone through that painful, iterative vendor selection process and identified them. Another way is tapping into my network and talking to other trusted individuals in my network. When I have a business owner that needs a solution, maybe I don't have them on my bench. I'll go to other people who I trust and say, hey, have you gone through this vendor selection process for fill in the blank, whatever challenge it is that we're talking about? And I'll get recommendations from them. And then the third way is from time to time, we'll test a solution provider and we'll be transparent with the business owner and say, hey, this is not a group that we've worked with before. We cannot give them an unqualified endorsement, but we've done our diligence. We've investigated them. We've asked all the questions. We've used our background in understanding how to properly vet solution providers. And generally, we feel comfortable that they will provide a quality result for you. But we qualify it, right? We let the business owner understand that we are also learning about the solution provider, and we're being transparent with them about that.
That's great. And it's an interesting one about network, building your network and having a network. So for me, since I left corporate and I've been in growing my business, I've done a lot of networking with all different types of groups. But it sounds like have you gone through that networking phase to build up your network, or was it always organic when it came to people you were working with and things like that? How have you grown your network to the level that you have that you can monetize it?
Well, if you think about it, I've been running businesses for 30 years. So just by virtue of the fact of the sheer volume of individuals that I've crossed paths with, whether they're a vendor or a client, a customer, just a partner, I've just organically grown my network over the years. But there are many ways to grow your network. If you haven't been out there in a professional environment for 33 years, there's plenty of ways to grow your network, whether it's joining networking groups, making yourself accessible, I find that one of the best ways to grow your network is actually to accept invitations from people who reach out to you on LinkedIn, random individuals. I think most people view LinkedIn almost as a nuisance because they get so many solicitations. But I actually view solicitations as an opportunity to meet new people, assuming that my calendar is allowing, where I've been intentional and broken out time specifically on my calendar for networking based activities. A great way to network with people is actually with discernment, accept invitations to connect on LinkedIn and accept people's invitation to actually join a Zoom call and meet face to face and learn about their business and ask lots of questions. And certainly that's an opportunity to ask the question, which is my favorite question, is what's the biggest challenge that you're facing in your business? Because it creates an opportunity for me to make an introduction to someone who can help them address that most critical issue that they're trying to solve for in their business.
Yeah. And how much of your week do you portion for networking and connecting with people? Just it'd be interesting because some people fall into the foul of end up spending almost all their time just networking and connecting with people, and sometimes they don't spend enough on their business, or sometimes it's the other side that you're in the weeds of your business and you can't actually build that network. What is your expectation weekly do you spend on networking?
Well, what I would say is that how much I would recommend would probably count. It depends somewhat on the maturity level of your business and how intentional you want to be about growing your business through referrals and through networking. For me in particular, I break out about 8 to 10 hours a week specifically for networking activities where I'm accepting calls, making outbound efforts to deepen relationships that I've built through my networking. But I'd say, what I'll do is I'll block out 2 hours a day. It's a recurring event on my calendar every single day, which I make available where I don't have other meetings or other things scheduled. And sometimes I use it for personal, breakout time to operate my business. But very often I use that time to conduct networking calls that I can.
That's really useful. That's really useful. Look, guys, if you're enjoying this episode, then do consider taking 30 seconds right now and give me 5-star review on Spotify and Apple. It only takes about 20 seconds and it genuinely helps the show reach more people like you. Right, next question. When a new client comes to you, what's a common problem, a common misconception maybe that they have when they're coming to you to find out if you can help them?
I mean, it really is all over the map, as you can imagine. I'm talking to small business owners really from every sector, but I would say a lot of the most common challenges that businesses are facing right now are around human resources. I think most business owners recognize that we've got the labor force, particularly within the United States, where I'm located. It's difficult to find highly qualified individuals who really want to work hard. And so that's one of the big areas. And we do make a lot of connections between those small businesses and outsourced companies. So companies that provide BPO, business process outsourcing, call center, collections, you name it, kind of all over the place. And the reality is we're a worldwide economy, and there's really individuals that can provide really, really high quality services at very cost effective rates all over the world. So I'd say that's one of the big areas. I'd say another big area is just demand gen, right? I don't have enough business. I need to grow my business. I'm having difficulty with my digital marketing agency. Or do you know where I can go to find good leads? Like, people want to buy leads, but the problem is that you have to test out 10 different lead sources to find one lead source that actually provides high quality leads. So one of the areas that we'll work in is we'll test lead sources to verify which lead sources are good quality and which ones are garbage. And we have a particularly large footprint in the legal space. So for law firms, we'll test lead sources to figure out which lead generation businesses are providing good quality and which are not. And then once we test a lead source, verify that it's good quality, then we'll enter into an agreement with that provider to make introductions to law firms that we have relationships with. Because that's a very heavy area of demand. Another area is just employee morale. How do you stop turnover? How do you keep employees happy? How do you keep them performing at a very high level? I'd say that's a pretty prevalent issue that businesses have, is avoiding turnover, keeping their employees engaged, stopping the best employees from being poached.
So you've mentioned a couple of times to do with talent and HR and keeping their people.
Yes.
I would imagine this is not we've got people that work for my business, a podcast agency, and they come from all over the world, and we've done brilliantly with really, really great people work in Nigeria, Peru, all this sort of stuff. But there is a portion of business owners that still want to hire in the US if you're in the US, in the UK if you're in the UK. What would you say to them if they're providing some sort of service? If you've got a coffee shop, it's a different matter, but it's like providing some sort of service. The advantages and maybe even the disadvantages of working with people from overseas.
I would say the disadvantage of working with people from overseas, sometimes you have the time differences, so you have to be very cognizant. Like a lot of the nearshore and offshore staff that we work with, we've been very intentional about hiring people in Latin America, just because you've got overlap in time zones, so that makes it somewhat easier to deal with, and you'll deal with potentially some cultural misalignment, but I think that those are the major issues. It's really just picking the right cultural match for your organization in terms of the country of origin where these contract employees are working at. We've got some employees in Western Europe, in the UK. We've got employees in South Africa. We've got employees in Australia. So it's not a absolutely 100% defined rule that they have to be in the same time zone. But you have to be intentional about it in the way that you operate it. You need to make your remote employees feel, from a cultural standpoint, as if they are part of your organization. You can't have them feeling like you're just giving them contract work or you're just giving them a task. You have to have daily stand-ups. You want to have a redundancy, so you don't want to hire a BPO and just hire one employee through that BPO. You want to hire at least two, so they don't feel like they're sitting in an island. And also, if that one person quits, which there's turnover, like just as if you had employees in your US-based or UK-based business, you're going to have turnover. So you don't want to hire just one employee, because that employee leaves, then there's no transfer of the training that you've done. So you want to hire at least two. You want to have daily stand-ups, right, where you make them feel part of the team. We've got all of our contract employees, we're all on Slack. I will tell you, there's probably, I would say, hundreds of Slack messages going back and forth where people are participating in even Slack channels that are not part of their core responsibility. But the reason they participate in those Slack channels is because we want them to make them feel engaged and in the know in terms of what's going on throughout the organization, and not as if they're sitting out on an island. So what I would say is you have to be very intentional when you're using remote employees to make sure that they feel culturally like you want them to feel like they're rowing in the same direction.
Yeah, they're all in the same team. They're like, you've got to feel, because it's a culture that you're trying to create in a company, right, isn't it? Always. So whether they're wherever they're based, bringing everyone together in some sort of forum is a great way for people to feel connected. And that's one of the things that can be a massive challenge, different locations, is that they all feel like they're pulling in the same direction for the company.
Agreed entirely. And like I said, that's why it's important to do things like daily stand-ups, regular meetings. Like, for instance, like we'll do every 2 weeks, we'll do a lunch and learn, an AI lunch and learn, where everybody within the organization comes in, and some of the people that are using AI at a more sophisticated level will basically do a show and tell and show them cool things that they can do with like Notion or ChatGPT, and how they use those tools to implement them into their daily activities in order to make them more efficient. But part of the reason is to implement AI, right? To try and make it part of our culture. But part of it is to have an opportunity for everybody within the organization to get together and show off what they're doing and get to know each other and understand each other's personalities and celebrate each other's wins. And that's a very important part. Whether you're sitting here in the US or the UK or you're a remote team, you have to create opportunities within your organization to celebrate each other and to talk about things that are not necessarily related to, the core of what you're doing. People stay at their jobs, whether they're contract remote employees or they're, physically located at your corporate location. They stay at their positions because of the people that they work with. That is the biggest factor that's going to impact whether people stay at their jobs or not.
But also the boss as well. I always think so I've worked in corporate, I've worked in enterprise for a number of years, and it has to permeate from the top as well. So you can have a group of people that are very connected and interrelated, but your boss, a business owner, in whatever fashion they are, you've got to make sure that the culture is coming from them and feeding down. Would you agree?
100%. It all comes from the top. If you create a culture where you're not accessible, where there is no communication, you don't show empathy, you don't acknowledge things that are important, life events or challenges that are happening by your employees, you are creating that culture, and it permeates across the entire organization. And you'd be amazed. I mean, there's plenty of surveys out there that reference the point that when you survey employees, you can find out a lot. If you do an anonymous, aggregated survey, you should do a survey of your employees to find out what they believe are the values of the management of the company.
Right. Amazing.
To be asking them for their opinion as to whether they believe that the company places value on their personal well-being, on their mental health, their physical health, and their circumstances. And I think anybody watching this who doesn't do a survey like that is probably burying their head in the sand and realizing that they have a cultural issue, but they don't want to admit it and they don't want to know. You as a business owner ought to want to know what's going on in the heads of your employees, and you should be surveying them anonymously and assuring them there's no way to track who filled out the survey. You just want aggregated information to understand what it is that your employees, your contractors are thinking about your organization. Because it's probably the same thing that your customers are thinking about your organization as well.
Yeah, that's very true. Look, can you walk us through the idea of cost-free model that how it actually works?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, it's making yourself accessible to business owners, right? Being willing to give to them, giving them some free advice, sharing your wealth of knowledge, things you know about operating businesses with them. It's not all about your focus in every conversation should never be, how do I make an introduction that I'm going to make money, right? Your first focus should always be, how do I provide as much value to this business owner in terms of helping them solve their problem? That should drive every single decision in terms of whether or not you make an introduction, and if so, who you make that introduction to. Your credibility, your reputation is, that's your value. The money that you make really is just a byproduct of the goodwill that you impart. And that's, one of the things that, I try and indoctrinate in people who are interested in leveraging their network in order to make introductions and generate residual sources of revenue from extending their network in the way that I'm doing, is, we all own a marketplace of our solution providers, as I referenced earlier on this show. The only difference of me is that I'm figuring out a way how to monetize my marketplace while extending goodwill to other business owners. And so the question is, why don't more people engage in this type of intentional model of monetizing their network by extending vendors that they've identified are best in class and can help people that they talk to? Because they're making these introductions all day long. I mean, how many people who are watching this have gotten a call in the last week from a colleague or other business owner, and they said, "Hey, do you know anyone? I've got this challenge that I'm facing in business. Do you know anyone you think can help me or you used in the past?" And you say, "Oh yeah, I've got a guy for you," and you make an introduction. The only difference between you and me is that I've got a framework in place in order to monetize on that transaction, and you may not. And the reason that you don't do it is because primarily I believe that we've all been brainwashed to believe that if you are receiving a remuneration as a result of extending your network, somehow any goodwill that could have been behind that introduction is somehow eradicated or undermined, right? It's as if those two concepts are mutually exclusive from one each other. Goodwill, remuneration, they can't live in the same place. And that's a fallacy. And so I spend a lot of time talking to people about how that's not true. In fact, it is the remuneration itself that provides an incentive to me and to others to spend more of our time extending goodwill and helping small business owners solve their most pressing issues.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I think I'm playing a little bit devil's advocate because I do agree with you about this whole idea. I'm part of a networking group which does help people. If you make an introduction and they buy, then they give you a part of the deal. So I do agree with that, but I'm on devil's advocate sort of positioning.
Sure.
Some people might say that by making a fee for an introduction, then that's turning that relationship into a transaction, and therefore a transaction deduces or reduces the value of you saying, "I've got someone that I believe will be able to help you with that challenge." How do you counter that?
Yeah, well, I would say, first of all, it's a fallacy as long as you do not fall prey to the perverse incentive of making an introduction purely for the reason of making money. And really, the reason you're making the introduction is driven by your interest in helping them resolve their issue as efficiently as possible. Then that completely eliminates that argument, right? So you're making the introduction in order to help them solve the problem. Any type of remuneration that you receive is simply a byproduct of the goodwill that you've actually conveyed, right? So again, it's all part of the brainwashing that it's been indoctrinated to us that, oh, you couldn't be spreading goodwill if you were receiving payment, but it's only if you fall prey to the perverse incentive where you're not making the introduction for the purpose of helping them solve their problem that undermines.
Yeah, if you're giving a bad solution provider, right, then you're just taking the money for that deal rather than actually helping them.
And guess what? That person's never going to come to you again asking for an introduction. I kind of jokingly say to people, like, I don't know if you've seen Pulp Fiction, obviously. Harvey Keitel's character in the movie is a guy.
Oh yeah, love it. Yeah,
wolf, right?
Yeah.
You got brains in your back seat. I'm the guy you call. I kind of, that's what I tell people is like, I want to be the guy that you call every single time you've got a problem, right?
Yeah.
If you got a challenge, call me. I've likely got a place that I can send you because I've had all the problems you've had, right? And I don't want you to have to experience that problem again. That's my nature, is that I'm a fixer. Like, I want to help people solve their problems. So as I started this business, I was really just trying to figure out what I want to do with the next iteration of my life, like the reinvention of who I was. And I spent my time talking to business owners purely for the purpose of trying to help them not step on the landmines that I'd stepped on. Right. And so I started making introductions, and then I realized, wow, this is great. I get to spend my day every single day helping people avoid solving the problems. The thing is, I'd like to make a living doing this rather than just doing it for free. And so I simply put a monetization framework around it that allowed me to engage in the same exact behavior. And I put, my guardrails around where I said, I will never make an introduction just to make money, or I'll never make an introduction to one vendor versus another just because the first vendor is paying me more money. Right. I'm only going to make that introduction to the very best solution provider, because what I want is that seeker, that business owner with a discrete challenge, to come back to me every single time and say, I'm going to call Kevin. I think he's probably got someone who can help me. And the reality is, Mark, that I'm not unique. What I'm doing, everybody who's watching this is doing every single week, at least once or twice, where they're making an introduction. The only difference is that I put a monetization framework around my behavior. I'm not asking people to change their behaviors.
Yeah.
So about 2 years ago, I actually started building software as a service that we call Introzy, INTROZY.com. And it falls in the category of what you'd call a partnership relationship management platform. So it's not a replacement for a CRM. It sits on top of your CRM. It's a partnership relationship management platform. And it is essentially a multi-sided marketplace that allows you to monetize on outbound referrals to solution providers in your network, or if you're a business running an affinity marketplace. And it also allows you to pay or receive referrals from referral partners that are sending people into your business. So whether you're a software company and you're receiving referrals from referral partners, right, co-selling relationships, et cetera, it gives you the ability to register the deals, manage the relationship with your partners, and manage the commissions that are associated with that. And we've been running our business on it for the last year and a half, and we make it available now to third parties that want to replicate what we're doing.
Amazing. Now, one of the questions that I've got for you, and we touched on it earlier, is about vetting service solution providers.
Yeah.
So what is if there's people that are listening and watching and thinking, I'm doing a lot of these sort of introductions that people are asking for, what if you, especially if you haven't worked with them, what's your framework? What's your vetting process that you do to make sure that these solution providers are actually going to deliver a high quality service?
Yeah. So the vast majority of the solution providers are folks that we've worked with previously, and we've already kind of vetted them out and used them ourselves. The second group would be solution providers that we've talked to people in our network, and they've gone through the vetting process, and they're folks that we trust in order to do good vetting, people we've worked with before. And we know if they're making an endorsement of a solution provider, the solution provider has already been vetted out and they are providing a good quality. But from time to time, we will bring in a new solution provider that we haven't worked with before. And like I said, we will make a disclosure. We'll test in a live environment. Sometimes we'll use the service ourselves for our own business if we can find some utility. So we'll actually make ourselves the guinea pig. But there are other times that we will go to one or more of our seekers, business owners that we've provided services before, and we'd say, look, we've talked to other customers of this business. They've given them a positive endorsement. We've gone through demos. We understand the product. We understand how it works. We believe it's a quality product. Would you have an interest in testing this with us? And we will test it in a live environment, fully transparently qualifying it as a new solution provider that we haven't tested yet. And we'll test it in a live environment, and we'll get feedback from the actual businesses that are using it and say, how would you rate this? What do you think of this product?
And so in a way, and I don't know if you foresee this, people are coming to you with challenges and you're helping them fix that. How much of your role is actually mentoring or coaching? Do you see that as part of your role as well? Because it feels like you're endorsing companies for this company saying, I think this company will be able to solve that solution. How much of your day is actually involved in mentoring, coaching as well?
I would say a significant portion of the amount of time that I speak with a business owner is actually providing coaching, but it's not in the more formalized way that, business coaches. So I'm not going to companies and saying, pay me $2,500 a month on a retainer and I'll be your business coach and I'll talk to you every single month and we'll talk about how to solve challenges. It's really more organic in having conversations with these business owners and being the guy they come to when they have a problem. I see a lot of business coaches out there on LinkedIn and otherwise. They're going out and saying, the traditional retainer model where they're saying, pay me $2,500 a month, pay me $5,000 a month, and I'll provide you a system, right? Where I come up with this program that I'll take you through over a period of months. And my perception is a lot of small business owners, they really don't want that. They don't want the retained business coach process. It's not always true. I'm sure there's definitely places, there's lots of value. I know lots of business coaches that provide a really, really great systematized program. But for a lot of small business owners, they either don't have the budget, they don't have the time, they don't want to make the commitment for the business coach, and they just really want someone to help them solve the problem du jour. What is the shortest line between my current challenge and the solution? And that's really the way that we work with a lot of the business owners, is we're trying to solve a very discrete challenge for that business owner as quickly as possible, not by delivering a service that we're going to charge them for, but by taking the vendor selection process out of the equation, right? Getting rid of the guessing game. What happens with a lot of business owners, they understand that they've got a problem, right? Maybe they don't understand the root cause of the problem. So we'll do some root cause analysis through a question and answer. But what I find is that our competition is not like business coaches or anything like that. It's procrastination. It's you're paralyzed. You're so afraid to make a mistake in choosing the correct vendor because you're concerned about making a mistake, that either one of two things happens. Either you end up making a choice, and inevitably, because we haven't been trained on how to go through the proper vetting process of a vendor, we make the wrong choice, and then we have to go through this painful, time-consuming, morale-busting, expensive, and iterative vendor selection process where we've got to unwind that relationship and then go back out to market, albeit with less confidence in our ability to make the right choice because we screwed it up the first time. Or we sit there and we do nothing, right? Because we're afraid to make the right choice, and we continue to suffer through whatever challenge it is we're facing. And so what we're trying to do is we're simply trying to remove that, the guessing game. And that in and of itself provides the opportunity for other people like me, even if you're not doing, I'm doing it full time, but there's lots of people that are just operating their business. And the reality is, like I referenced before, making introductions to vetted solution providers that you've used in the past, there's two great opportunities for you. Number one, it's an opportunity to ingratiate yourself with business owners. I call a business, I'm trying to sell group health insurance to them. I'm a one-trick pony, right? I'm selling one thing. And during that conversation, most salespeople will talk to the HR director, and the HR director will say, we're not an open enrollment. We can't use your product at this point. And the salesperson will say, okay, I'll call you back in 3 or 4 months. You're just a salesperson. You haven't imparted any value. But what if you said to that HR director, okay, you're not ready for group health insurance right now. What is the biggest challenge you're facing in your business? What are you trying to solve for right now? Are you having HR issues? Are you having staffing issues? Like, what is the challenge you want to try and solve for right now? And they tell you, because of course, that's what business owners talk about. And now you say, you know what? I know someone that I've worked with in the past that really could do a great job of helping you with that specific problem. I'm happy to make an introduction. Would you like me to do that? Yes, I've been looking for a solution. And now you make an introduction. You've done two things. Number one, you've ingratiated yourself with them. Now, 3 months from now, when you check back with them, right, you're not just the guy who's trying to sell them group health insurance. You're the guy who helped them solve their most pressing challenge, and you did it for free. And then the second thing you've done at that point is you've now monetized on that introduction by making a passive introduction. Now you've created passive residual revenue for your business that can help to subsidize paid marketing, other initiatives, partnership building, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Look, guys, if you've got through to this far in the episode, hopefully you have enjoyed this conversation. Please do consider joining my community on Patreon for behind the scenes and exclusive content. So go to patreon.com/business growth talks. Kevin, one of the things you mentioned a lot earlier on that I want to come back to, I want to loop back to, is about lead generation, demand generation. So this is something that I would say most of my listeners and viewers they have a lead problem. They have a problem where it comes to maybe it's come through referrals, maybe it's through paid ads, or whatever their strategy is. What do you look at? Like, do you look at the industry? Do you look at the type of business when you're making those suggestions for lead gen companies and how to build value for them bringing more leads into their company?
Yeah, I'm looking at the industry. I'm looking at what their budget is. I'm understanding exactly what the business is and what the business needs are. If they have a small internal sales team, for instance, they need someone who's going to schedule appointments for them, right? They can't have their sales staff dialing for dollars on leads, right? They need demos set up or scheduled appointments set, versus someone who's got a larger sales team and a larger budget might be able to work with email list providers, right? Or email nurturing providers, or AI SDRs or BDRs that will generate leads for them. So it all depends on the industry, the business, what their budget is, what the size of their team is. But we'll do our best to find out as much as possible about the team, and then we'll use that specifically to make them with the appropriate solution provider.
And what is the key question? Like, let's give an example of a small business owner who wants to be able to get more leads. They've got a sales team, whether it's them and someone else, or they've got a small sales team of like 3 or 4 people. What for you are the key questions that you're posing to your clients to know which one is the right provider for them?
Well, what are you selling? First, are you selling software? Are you selling a service? How large is the team? Do you have one salesperson? What is their capacity? What's your budget? How much can you afford to spend? What is your capital reserve? How much risk are you willing to absorb in this process? Can we test out 2 or 3 different providers to find out what is the best performing one, and then strip out ones that they may all perform okay, but unless you've got an unlimited amount of capital to spend, you're going to naturally gravitate towards those that generate the best ROI, right? The lowest cost of acquisition. So those are the primary questions that we would ask. Is we would just type of product, company size, amount of capital, budget, what they've tried. What have you tried before that's worked?
What have you tried? Yeah, that's a really great question, isn't it?
What has not worked? Why didn't it work? Right?
Yeah.
What did you find if they're saying we weren't able to convert it, maybe that the root cause of their problem is they have the wrong sales people in place, right? Yeah. So it may be a training issue that they need rather than a demand gen issue. So you have to get to the root cause of the challenge. And those are some of the technology tools that we're working on right now, are developing an agentic experience where people will be able to go online and work with an agent that will actually automatically ask them a bunch of these questions. So if you don't like the idea, like if you don't like what I look like, or you don't want to have a one-on-one, what we're trying to do is create an agentic experience for people so that they can actually go and talk to an agent about the challenges and automatically get match made with a solution provider based on just having a conversation with an agent.
Great. How do you think you've evolved as a leader?
I have learned to trust my employees more and delegate more, over time. And maybe it's somewhat of a product of becoming busier and busier, but it's also a product of me just maturing and understanding that the best leaders are the ones that empower their employees, remove obstacles, get out of their way, really hire the right people, invest the right amount of time and thoughtfulness in identifying the right individuals to be within your organization. Don't cut corners on the people that you bring within your organization, because they are your most valuable asset, and they're going to be the representatives. They're going to represent your culture and who your business is. So invest heavily in trying to find the right people to operate your organization. And then your job as a leader is to remove obstacles that are getting in their way. Allow them to work autonomously. Don't be the person that's micromanaging them and trying to get your hands involved in every single little thing that they do. And I'm still guilty of that from time to time within my own organization. It's just our nature is that, part of what makes us strong leaders is, we take control of things. What I would say is, resisting that urge and allowing your employees, again, hiring the right employees, and then allowing them to evolve and grow, and being the biggest supporter of that and enabler of that is the best thing that I think you can do as a leader.
And what is your risk appetite, and how has it changed over the years?
It's funny. So I think by nature, I am willing to take a lot of risks in business. I believe that only by taking risks can you really grow aggressively. So you have to be comfortable with some level of risk. And I think that's on a spectrum for business. I think business owners by nature, they have to have some appetite for risk. Otherwise they'd get a full-time job with a paycheck. Right. So it's just it's in our DNA. But I would say that I used to be more kind of take risks a little bit more off the cuff, so to speak. And I think over time, I've learned to become more intentional and thoughtful in the risk process. In other words, the way that it's not as much of a risk as it may seem to be other people is being very disciplined in your analysis of that risk and modeling out the financial impact. We'll model out, what is your, we'll model out 3 different scenarios. One is what we expect the outcome to be. Another one is, what happens if we miss that mark by 25 or 30%? And what happens if we exceed that mark by 25 or 30%?
Right.
And so it allows you to evaluate risks at looking at the worst case scenario. And if you can live with that potential outcome, I wouldn't call it as much of a risk, right? So risk is, I think it's a relative term. It's based on who's perceiving it and how much thought you put into evaluating what that risk is before you take it.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we're coming to the end of the interview. I ask the same 6 questions to all my guests. They're quick fire questions. They don't need a quick fire answer. First question is, what's the best decision you've made?
The best decision I made was starting Sanguine Strategic Advisors, getting out of highly regulated, operationally complex businesses, and really finding something that, I set goalposts for myself in terms of what I wanted my life to be, in terms of what I was doing every single day. And I built a business around meeting those goalposts rather than starting a business and then turning around a year later, having a lot of responsibility and a lot of obligations to other people within the organization, and then saying to myself, what the heck did I do to my life? I built a business I'm stuck with, but I'm not happy in it. And so this time around, I've learned, and I built a business that really fits within those goalposts of what I want my life to be.
Brilliant. What's the best piece of advice you've been given?
Best piece of advice. I would just say, my dad was a big proponent of kind of the saying, adversity is how a man acts in the face of adversity is the best judge of his character. It's the biggest reflection of who you are. It's easy to be a nice guy when everything is going your way. How you act when you're under adverse circumstances is, dictates who you are and how you're going to be perceived in business and how you're going to operate your business more than any other single factor. So I'd say that's far and away the best advice that I've been given in my life.
Yeah, that's brilliant advice. And who's the person that's helped you most in your career?
I would say my first, so when I was running my first law firm, as I was running that law firm, we were doing a lot of advertising. We were doing phone book advertising. This is back in the 90s, right? Late 90s. Yeah. And in 2002, Google came up with this cool new thing called Google pay-per-click. And this young guy, Ed Scanlon, who had started a digital marketing business on his laptop, came to me because I was a law firm that had a presence in a number of states, and said, "Hey, give me $5,000 budget. I want to see if I can start driving inquiries, leads for consumers who are looking for legal help using Google pay-per-click." And we started doing that. Long story short, after working together for a couple of years, I actually sold my interest to the law firm, to my partners, and left in order to join Ed and start a technology and marketing company that was called Total Attorneys, which kind of pioneered lead gen in the legal space. And so I think by exposing me to the technology and these new opportunities that technology enabled, and creating an environment for me to spread my entrepreneurial wings beyond just the four walls of a law firm, I think Ed really kind of opened up that opportunity. So I'm grateful to him for that.
That's brilliant. This is a bit more of a difficult question. Tell me about a regret that you have.
When I was running the law firm, the second law firm, we had a vendor that came along and offered to provide services to us that probably sounded a little too good to be true. And we actually started using that vendor and referring some of our clients to it. Long story short, it turned out that this vendor was engaging in fraudulent activities, and we got pulled in to a whole bunch of litigation and regulatory oversight, and spent millions of dollars of legal fees and reputational damage as a result of a poor decision to refer clients to this vendor. And obviously in hindsight, it's always easy to look at and say, I should have done it differently. But I would just say, for people watching this episode, if it sounds too good to be true, just be careful and do your due diligence, and make sure that you understand that the reputation of your business is probably one of your business's most valuable assets, and you should protect it dearly and not take any kind.
And I suppose that was a pivotal moment for you, wasn't it? Because you think now you're building relationships on vetting companies and people that you've worked with. You went through a situation there where you didn't vet, where you didn't do enough due diligence. It's probably was very painful at the time. I don't doubt that, but it's actually been a great learning for you going forward in your other businesses.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I survived it barely, but it really ruined the business. And I mean, it was a horrible experience. And I don't know how many people have dealt with regulators, but when regulators run out of legal arguments, they attack you personally and your reputation. Right. So it was a very, very painful period of my life. And I just tell people, just be very careful. If something sounds too good to be true, just make sure you're very careful and do your diligence, and err on the side of caution.
Yeah. I want to talk about you as a business owner, and it can be any facet of your business owner experience. Was there a time that you wanted to give up, and what made you pull through?
I mean, it was when that incident was going on, where we had lawsuits all over the place. I was having to testify and go to depositions, and being attacked reputationally, and the business was experiencing financial challenges as a result of all the legal fees. So it was a very challenging time. And I think part of the reason that I was able to pull through it is really just my own demeanor. I am a sanguine person. That's how I came up with the name. Sanguine is a personality type, and it means optimistic even in the face of adversity, right? And rather than me sitting there and feeling bad for myself and feeling victimized by what was happening, circumstances that the train had already left the station, so to speak, right? There's nothing that I could do related to the underlying causes of what was going on. But what I could do is I could control what I was able to control, right? So the way to solve the problem was just to continue to pull forward and do it with my chin held high, and take accountability for the part that I played in causing the challenge and move forward and keep building, keep persevering.
Thank you, Kevin. I really do appreciate your openness on that, because it sounds horrific, to be honest, with the regulators getting involved. So thank you for your honesty.
Right? And I'm only here today because of it, right?
Yeah. Tell me something that most people don't know about you.
Well, anyone who does know me at all knows that I'm about the most diehard Cubs fan that you'll ever meet. So I live a few blocks away from Wrigley Field, and I go to about 30 games a year. And that's I say to people, I work, I spend time with my wife and my dog, and I go to Cubs games. That's kind of my life. And I've got a great mini Bernedoodle named Murphy, who's kind of brings a lot of joy into our lives. But outside of working, I try and keep life pretty simple.
Brilliant. And the last question is, what does legacy mean to you, Kevin?
Legacy just means leaving a lasting impact on people. And I really, at least, for me personally, I want people to, look back at interactions with me and just say, Kevin was a nice guy, and he had a genuine desire to help people. And I think, if each of us, as we're running our businesses and providing our services and establishing relationships along the way, like we spend 10, 12, 14 hours a day doing this, right? So it's like, I think especially as you start becoming older and wiser, I think you recognize that, you look for more ways to have meaning in your life, right? So it's, I think that legacy is doing things that have meaning.
Yeah, amazing. Look, thank you, Kevin. Thank you so much for your time today. The conversation was great. I really enjoyed it. Look, that's it for us today, guys. If you've taken something from that conversation, the best thing you can do is hit subscribe wherever you listen or watch to this podcast. It genuinely helps more people find the show. And if you're on YouTube, hit the like button, drop me a comment below telling me what your biggest takeaway was. And if you're on Spotify or Apple, please do consider giving me a 5-star rating. It only takes 30 seconds, but makes a real difference to the show. And if you know someone that you think that really needs to hear this episode, please do share it with them. And I'll see you in the next one.